Week 10, you guys. Week 10 of our, guess what? YouTube Live. Okay, so I'm glad that you guys made it. Thank you for joining me on Trauma Talks. Okay, all right, and this week, this is week 10. We're gonna be going even deeper. We're not stopping, you guys. We're pushing this thing all the way to 26 weeks of lives from, guess what? Trauma Talks. Okay, so boundaries and nervous system safety. Okay, boundaries and nervous system safety. We got to learn how to understand our boundaries and calm your nervous system. So that's what we're going to talk about today on Trauma Talks Live. Okay. So welcome. My name is Krystal Boothe. I am a licensed clinical social worker and I am the, owner and the founder of Wings of the Future. Okay. So I'm glad that you guys are here for this week 10. All right. I'm glad you made it. I'm glad I made it. Hey, it wasn't easy. Every time we push, hey, we're going to get there though. So tonight we're talking about, guess what? Something that is deeply, deeply important for healing, okay? For relationships, for emotional safety, and for nervous system regulation, you guys, all right? So that's like I said, it's boundaries and nervous system safety. And you can get this done. You can get the work done. Before we go deeper, though, let's take a minute to arrive. Wherever you are watching from, I want you to just notice your body. Just notice your body. Notice your breath, okay? And notice the space around you, okay? Notice the space around you. Let's get grounded. Let's get focused. Let's get tuned in. Not just tuned into one another's, but most importantly, tuned into ourselves, okay? We got to tune into ourselves. We got to know what's going on the inside of us, okay? So wherever you're watching from, let's start that process, okay? You do not have to perform tonight. Mm-mm. You don't have to perform. You don't have to act like, hey, you know what? I got it all together. This is your opportunity to let all those walls come down. And you know what I mean? To let all those walls come down and start the process of really focusing and tuning into what's really going on with you. Because in order to heal, you got to get into that place of authenticity and we have to get into that place of vulnerability, which means our walls have to come down. Okay. So you do not have to get everything perfect right now. This is not the time where you have to worry about getting things perfect. You do not have to force yourself to feel calm. Mm-mm. You do not have to force yourself to feel calm. This space is about awareness, compassion, truth, and healing. That's what this space is about. It's not about, pretending. We pretended long enough, you guys. We don't need to pretend anymore. So tonight we're going to talk about why boundaries are not just communication tools. Okay? I've been wanting people to know this. Boundaries start on the inside, you guys. All right? If you're having a hard time with boundaries on the outside with other people, maybe you're having a hard time with creating those boundaries first on the inside of you. That's the signals, okay? That lets your nervous system, where your nervous system is trying to scream at you and telling you boundaries, 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 and you don't listen, okay? So tonight we're going to talk about why boundaries are not just communication tools, okay? All right, boundaries are about nervous system safety tools. Nervous system safety, okay? We got to protect our nervous system, okay? It's so fragile, okay? Because many people think boundaries are just about saying no. And boundaries are about saying no. It's true. Boundaries are about saying no, but that's not all of it, okay? That's not the end of it, okay? Boundaries tell your body, I'm allowed to protect my peace, okay? Boundaries tell you that. And sometimes the reason why you're having a hard time protecting your peace is because guess what? Your boundaries learn that, that your peace was not that important. And so guess what? You didn't learn to protect your peace. All right. That's an inside job, you guys. I always talk about the inside work. That's where it all starts. Okay. So boundaries are also allowed to listen to myself because sometimes, like I said, your body is screaming, your nervous system is screaming, your intuition is screaming, but guess what? You've been taught not to listen to yourself, not to tune into yourself, not to believe yourself. Okay, so you also boundaries. I am allowed to choose what is healthy for me. Okay, I'm allowed to choose what's healthy for me. All right, I do not have to abandon myself to keep connection because oftentimes when we were younger or somewhere along the way, guess what? Connection meant abandoning ourselves. Connecting with others meant abandoning ourselves. And that's where we learn all this from. And so for those of us who have experienced trauma, rejection, neglect, people pleasing, emotional chaos, okay, unsafe relationships, boundaries can feel terrifying because it was boundaries that people refused to follow that taught you this, you know, the way that you're treating yourself now. Okay. So they were terrifying. All right. So not because you were weak or anything. That's not why boundaries were terrifying. Not because you were dramatic or anything like that. Not because you don't know better. That's not even that. Okay. But it's because our nervous system may have learned early on that setting boundaries led to conflict. Take that in. Setting boundaries led to some type of conflict. And that's why boundaries became terrifying. That's how boundaries became unsafe because someone told you, guess what? Because when you try to set boundaries with them, guess what? Things got worse. So you learned that boundaries were not safe. You learned that boundaries were dangerous. When in fact, boundaries are what keeps us safe. It's quite the opposite of what you were taught. And so when someone tells you to set boundaries, it's so hard for you to set boundaries because you still see boundaries as dangerous, okay? As something that causes conflict in your life. So I'm not going to set boundaries because, people are pushing back. Maybe you had narcissists in your life. Maybe you had unsafe people. Maybe you had toxic people that didn't want boundaries, okay? Maybe that's how you learned this. Just maybe. But think about it for a minute. Okay? Why did you start to think that boundaries were not a good thing? When in fact, boundaries are absolutely amazing and you should all have them. Okay? Because if boundaries meant conflict, if boundaries meant that you got abandoned, if boundaries meant that you got punished or guilted or shamed or disconnected, guess what happened? You start having boundaries. That's now there became a problem for you. Okay? And that makes, complete sense why you wouldn't want to set boundaries because boundaries are terrifying. They're dangerous. They cause conflict. People abandon me when I set boundaries. They punish me when I set boundaries. I get guilt tripped all the time, shamed, people disconnect from me. So I don't do it anymore. So tonight we're going to slow this all the way down. So you really understand it for once and for all. So that, guess what? Once you finish this, I'm hoping and praying that you're going to be able to set boundaries and you're going to be able to maintain your boundaries and not just set them, but you're going to be able to enforce them. That's my whole goal of doing this one. Okay. This is so powerful. If you've ever had problems with setting boundaries, this live is for you. Do not tune off, tune in and turn it up. Okay. And clear out all the other noise around you. Okay. And focus in on what I'm saying today. Okay. All right, so we're going to look at boundaries through the lens of the nervous system. A little bit different than maybe what you've done before. Okay, maybe you read about boundaries, maybe you even know a little bit about boundaries, but maybe you don't understand them to the point where you're able to actually set them and maintain them. Okay. So you're going to look at boundaries through the lens of the nervous system. And by the end of this live, my hope is that what's going to happen for you is that you're going to understand boundaries more clearly. You're gonna your body's gonna feel a lot safer, a little bit more safer. Hopefully, a lot more safer, a little bit more safer. But it's gonna feel safer, okay? All right, and you're gonna walk away with practical language that you can actually use to start setting boundaries and start managing boundaries, okay, around you. But it all starts on the inside. So, like I said, it's an inside job, okay? So, before we begin, please remember this live is for educational support only, okay? It's not a replacement for therapy or medical care or crisis support. If anything feels too activating. Okay, pause, step away, breathe, drink some water, and reach out to someone who helps you to feel safe. Okay, all right. So this is for educational purposes, you guys. All right. So you're allowed to take care of yourself here. All right. Even if you get activated here, because sometimes people, you know, they don't. This kind of stuff activates you. It could trigger some things in you. All right. And if you don't have a therapist there to help you with that, that could be very hard. Okay, so let's get into this. All right, before I jump on this next segment, okay, I want you to drop a comment in the chat. Okay, when you hear the word boundaries, what comes up for you? I'm waiting. What comes up for you? When you hear boundaries, what comes up for you? Because boundaries could mean something different for everybody. Okay, maybe for you, when you hear boundaries, you hear peace. Peace, Miss Crystal. I hear so much peace. Maybe when you hear boundaries, you feel guilt. So you don't want to hear the word boundary because you've always been guilted that way, okay? Or maybe boundaries means fear for you or confusion. Maybe I know I need them. Maybe you feel like that. Yeah, I know I need boundaries, Miss Crystal, but I don't know how to keep them. So maybe you set them. Maybe you're good at setting them. Maybe you're good at telling people what your boundaries are. But maybe you have the struggle when it comes time for you to reinforce those boundaries that you've already set. Yeah. So I want you to put that in the chat for me because this is we do engaging things. I don't just talk at you. I talk to you. Okay. I talk to you and you talk back to me and we talk to each other. Okay. And that's how we work it out. Okay. So as you type that, I want you to notice something. Your answer is not wrong. Anything you say, don't think it's wrong. I'm not going to say anything on there because I don't want to be to say the wrong thing. She's on here teaching us about this, and I don't want to be the one person in the class that gets the wrong answer. It's not about that, you guys. It's not about you getting the wrong answer. It's about you beginning to work this process out and beginning to hone in fully on what boundaries means for you so that you can understand why you're not setting them. Because if you don't understand where you fall in that category of where boundaries means to you, you're probably not going to know how to set them. Okay? So the way you respond to boundaries often tells a major story about why, what happened with you and boundaries, okay? Where you dropped off from boundaries, okay? And where your nervous system has been through as a result of setting those boundaries, because likely your nervous system has been through a lot, okay? So hopefully you guys got some water. I didn't get any of this today, so drink some for me, okay? Drink some water for me. All right, so let's continue, you guys. All right. So let's start here. A boundary is not a threat. It's not a threat. A boundary is not control. A boundary is not punishment. Okay, a boundary is not you trying to make somebody else behave the way you want them to. Because a lot of people think, oh, boundaries are you're trying to control me. I've heard that before. People think that oh, the boundaries are all about you trying to control other people and their actions. And in a lot of cases, people will fall off of boundaries because of that reason, because they think that's what a boundary is all about. Okay. But a boundary is simply a clear line. Okay. You have a boundary to your house. You have a boundary to getting inside your house. Boundaries are everywhere. Okay. Boundaries are all around us. All right. They're healthy, they're safe, they're respectful, and they help sustain you. Okay. Boundaries help sustain you. All right. So a boundary says this is what I can do. Okay. This is also what I cannot do. And we have to have that. We have to know what we can and can't do. We can't just be willy-nilly out here. Okay. This is what I will participate in. Also, boundaries will say what I'm going to participate in. Some things you're saying, you hit a boundary, I'm not going to participate in that. You know what I mean? You'll say this is where the line is drawn with me. I go this far. I don't go any further. Okay, this is what I will no longer participate in. This is what I need in order to remain connected without abandoning myself. Okay, so sometimes you think about, okay, your boundary could actually be, okay, this is what I accept in my life. This is the degree or this is the level that I want the person in my life to operate on. Okay. So you might have a boundary with that. You might say, I want the person in my life to be of the same faith. I want the person in my life to have, the same enthusiasm about working or business, or might have other kinds of boundaries, along those lines. Okay. So, it's about what you say you want to participate in, what you want, what you can do, what you can't do, what you're going to participate in, what you're not going to participate in. But it's also, about what things you're looking for in your life too, because there's some things that you might want a person to in your life to have, or to be able to kind of have a baseline, you know what I mean, that you want that person to have. And you might say, you know what, the person in my life has to have this particular baseline of functioning. They got to be able to do this, and that's okay too. All right. It also can kind of weed into expectations a little bit too. And that's not a bad thing. Okay. You got to be able to say, because you could have a high expectation or a high boundary, or you could have a low boundary. But the boundaries are not something that anyone else can create for you, and particularly not a therapist. You have to determine where your boundaries lie. That's only something for you to determine, okay? A therapist can give you some ideas, or a coach can give you some ideas around boundaries, and maybe you might decide to take those ideas. But at the end of the day, if you don't mind someone, let's say, you know, spending the night at your house, for instance, that's you. If you don't mind people calling you really, really late in the night, that's okay. Maybe that's okay with you for your boundary. Maybe for someone else that maybe wouldn't be okay. Make sense? So it kind of goes like that. So boundaries are something that you identify and you develop on your own. Okay? So let's continue here. All right. So now that you know what their boundaries are, all right, and how boundaries really can help you, all right, help you to stay connected to yourself. Because sometimes people, they'll forfeit staying connected to themselves because someone else doesn't like their boundaries. So they'll say, well, I'll abandon my boundaries because I want to be with this person, or I want to have some sort of relationship with this person. And they'll abandon their boundaries in order to be with that person. But they have to keep in mind that if you abandon those boundaries, that they've got to be your boundaries. Um, what'll end up happening is you'll connect with another person and abandon yourself. So that last part really, really matters, you guys. Okay. So because a lot of people were taught that love means self-abandoning, and love does not mean self-abandoning. You have to have boundaries. You have to know what they are. You're the only one that can create them. And guess what? If you don't manage them or maintain them, the boundaries that you set, you could end up self-abandoning yourself and not even know it. Okay. So, all right, if you were taught to just be nice, don't upset anyone, keep the peace, don't be difficult, just forgive and move on, family is family, do not talk back. Okay. Do not have an attitude, be grateful, stop being sensitive. Sometimes some of those statements can be good statements. I'm not saying they're bad statements, but sometimes those statements can lead you to self-abandoning. Okay. And so you got to kind of know when those statements lead you into self-abandoning. Okay. Because some of the things that you're protecting are worth protecting. Some of the things, yeah, maybe you're holding on to something that maybe you need to let go of. So I'm not saying this is specifically all the time, but some of those statements are what people will use to help you dismiss your own feelings. Okay. To help you, they already dismissed your feelings, but they want you to dismiss your feelings too. Okay. And I don't want you to dismiss your feelings. I want you to be sensitive to your feelings, because you don't need to self-abandon. Does this make sense? Okay. So that's not real peace. Okay. That is survival. That's operating out of survival. And a lot of people will, I guess you could say, they will coach you to do that to yourself. Okay. So a lot of people don't have weak a lot of people have weak boundaries. Actually, a lot of people have weak boundaries because they do not care about themselves. But it's not because of that. It's because a lot of the times they were taught not to care about themselves. It's not that they don't care about themselves. It's that they were taught not to care about themselves. With those statements I just gave you, people use those statements that, like I just gave you, to teach you how to not care about yourself. And I don't want you to do that. I want you to learn how to care about yourself, but also respect other people's boundaries at the same time. Okay? Because you can respect other people's boundaries while keeping your own. If that makes sense. Okay? So they have these weak boundaries because at some point their nervous system learned this, you guys. It's safer to please others than to be honest. It's safe. They learned it. Oh, when I try to, be honest, being honest is dangerous. So if being honest became dangerous, there goes the type of personality that is dishonest communicator. Okay? They dishonestly communicate because their safety came from being dishonest. And the dishonesty has to start with yourself. Okay? So think about that for a minute. If your safety comes from being dishonest, you're gonna start to see it's gonna be hard for you to be honest and tell people what your boundary is. And it's definitely gonna be hard for you to reinforce it. Even if you tell them, you'll have a hard time reinforcing it. Okay. But remember this about this, what we're talking about today. This is not a character flaw. So I'm not bringing this up to make you feel like, oh no, I can't figure this out. How am I going to fix myself? No, it's not a character flaw. Remember, it is a survival response. So if it was dangerous to be honest, there lies the reason for this. Okay. There lies the reason. Okay. So now let's connect this to the nervous system because we really want to remember. I told you we're going to connect the boundaries to the nervous system today, which a lot of people don't really do that. They just tell you about the boundaries, but they don't tell you about the nervous system. Because if once you learn about the nervous system, you'll be able to have those internal boundaries where you'll be able to have a consistent behaviors, a consistent reaction to what you will and will not accept. Okay. So the nervous system is always scanning for safety. It's always scanning for safety. As soon as you walk in a room, you're scanning, am I safe? Are the people I'm around safe? What are they saying? What are they doing? And your body, your nervous system is constantly scanning for that. Okay. So it's asking, am I safe? Am I accepted? Am I in danger here? Do I need to fight? Do I need to run? Okay. Do I need to shut down? Do I need to please this person so nothing bad happens? And guess what? A lot of the times people who don't feel safe have a strong reaction to being in certain areas. It's because they grew up in unsafe areas. So, like I said, the reaction of I'm not safe. I just need to lie and just tell people what they need to hear. You know what I mean? And be some version of codependency. Um, that's what they learn to do as a survival response to survive these unsafe environments that I'm talking to you guys about right now. Okay, so they learn to shut down. They learn to run. They learn to be quiet. They learn to be dishonest. And that's why now, when someone tells them to set boundaries, guess what? They're going to have a hard time setting boundaries. Okay, because this is what they were taught. Okay, so when your body does not feel safe, it can go into the survival responses. And you know what the survival responses is? I've talked to you about this before. And if you didn't get a chance to watch one of the other videos that we did this during this 26 days live, their fight, which is anger, defensiveness, or arguing. These are the trauma responses. Okay, controlling or snapping at people. That's a fight response under the fight, flight, freeze, or fawn responses. Then we got the flight response when people avoid, they overwork, they stay busy, they leave really quickly. Those are the people who, the way that they stay safe, the way that they feel safe is by flight. It's just avoid, or they're overworked to keep themselves busy, to keep them. And you think that they're just focusing, but a lot of the times they're protecting themselves. It's a survival response. Not all the time, but a lot of times. Then there's the freeze response. These people go numb. They feel stuck. They're not knowing what to say or what to do because their trauma response is just to freeze. And then there's the fawn response. Okay. All right. This is a lesser known trauma response. But again, like this particular trauma response is all about the people pleasing, making sure everybody around them is safe and everybody around them has what they need. And by doing so, they protect themselves, okay, from danger, from emotional danger, from an environment which they don't feel safe in. So they gain their safety by caring for other people. Okay. So you think that this person is a good person because you see them, you're like, oh, they're just every time problems happen, I always see them to just do everything for everybody. But that's a fawn response, you guys. Okay. It's people pleasing, they over apologize, they agree to stuff that they don't mean, they really mean no to. So obviously, these people are not, they didn't likely grow up in a safe environment. Okay. All right. They likely did not grow up in a safe environment. So now here's what boundaries come in for these people. Here's where boundaries come in. When you do not have clear boundaries, your nervous system often stays on high alert. Okay. So when you don't have clear boundaries, your nervous system stays on high alert because you're going to be in hypervigilant mode. You're going to be constantly looking, scanning for danger because you don't feel safe, because your body does not know where you end and where someone else begins. Yeah, yeah. It's not a good place to be. You might feel responsible for everyone else's emotions if you're in this fight, flight, or freeze, or I mean this hypervigilant response. Okay, you'll constantly be looking around and just managing everybody in the room, not really able to just hone in on what you think, what you feel, what you believe, and show up in an honest way about that. Okay, you all right. You might feel anxious when someone is disappointed with you. You start to feel anxious. Okay, instead of someone gives you some sort of feedback, you can't accept that feedback. Okay, because you're in the fawn response. You're just people pleasing. You're just managing the room, not because not because you're a bad person, managing the room because you don't feel safe in the room. All right, you feel anxious, you don't want to disappoint anyone because you don't want this environment to go from some version of managed safety to unmanageable. So you're managing it constantly. Okay, you might say yes, then resent it later. You might say, yeah, I'm okay, and really you're not okay. Okay, all right, you might over explain yourself. You might feel panic after spending sending a simple text. You might replay conversations for hours. Okay. You might feel like you need permission to choose yourself. Okay. This is not just being too sensitive. Remember that. Okay. This is nervous system that has not been given enough safety, consistency, and permission. Take that in. This is a nervous system that has not been given enough safety, consistency, and permission. So, yes, yes, this is where you become just trying to make it from one moment to the next. Okay? I cannot connect and still be separate. That's what you don't connect. You're not really connecting with people. You're just surviving people. Okay? It's really bad, okay? I can love someone and still say no. That's what we want to teach you here. That you can love someone, you can care for someone, you can stay connected to someone, but still tell them no. It's okay. You can disappoint someone and still be safe. Sometimes we disappoint people. Sometimes somebody wants a certain answer and we give them an answer that they don't want. And that's okay too. I can be kind without betraying myself. Okay? Because later on, when you start to betray yourself, you're gonna start that ruminating negative talk towards yourself. Oh, you're stupid. You're this, you're that. Yeah, that's what that's coming from because you're showing up unauthentic in these relationships. And you're showing up unauthentic, not because you're bad, but because you're having difficulty with these boundaries. You're having difficulty telling people the truth about how you really feel. Okay. And then standing on that, as they say, stand on the truth. And this is what your truth is what you're standing on. Okay. Does that make sense? All right, so let's continue, you guys. All right, well, we're actually going to pause for a minute and do a little exercise because, I love to do exercises with you guys because this may already be bringing some things up in you. The things that I'm saying right now might already be causing you to feel some kind of way in your body. Okay, put both feet on the floor if you can, you guys. Relax your shoulders. I'm going to try and do it with you. Okay, all right, unclench your jaw. Okay, and let your eyes look to so that you can see. Now take a slow breath in, okay? And let it slowly out. You do not have to force a deep breath. Just let your body know. Right now, I'm in the moment. I am here. Now, gently place your hand on your chest or on your stomach or wherever you feel comfortable and say to yourself, I'm allowed to have needs. I'm allowed to have needs and more. I'm allowed to have needs and more. Okay. And one more. I'm allowed to protect my peace. I'm allowed to protect my peace. Beautiful. Very good. Very good. I'm allowed to have needs. I'm allowed to protect my peace. Okay. All right. So, why do boundaries feel so hard? Let's tell the truth, you guys. Let's tell the real truth why boundaries feel so hard. Boundaries can feel hard because boundaries often bring up old wounds. Boundaries weren't safe for you, like I told you. At one point, boundaries were not safe. So for some people, setting boundaries brings up a lot of feelings of guilt and maybe even shame. For others, it brings up fear. Some for others, it brings up grief. Yeah, boundaries can bring up bad feelings. So now you know why you don't set boundaries. It's not because you're a bad person. It's because the boundaries are bringing up some stuff for you. Okay? All right? Because when you start having boundaries, you may begin to realize how many times you did not have them. How many times did you not have boundaries? Okay? That's what you start to feel bad because you start to think, hey, I abandoned myself all these times. I treated myself so badly. And then, of course, the shame, the guilt, all that's going to flood in. You're going to be bad at yourself, essentially. Why did I do that to myself? But don't think about it like that. It, in this, you guys, but I want to just talk to you for a minute before we end. All right. So before we end this, you might remember this. Next time, we're going to continue talking about a little bit more about boundaries. Okay. All right. They can hurt, but remember when you said this, screaming no, you were screaming no. You remember the time you tolerated disrespect because you wanted to keep the relationship. Those were those times when you were, you know, trying your best to set boundaries, okay? You might remember the time when you minimized your pain because someone else did not want to be accountable. So you just acted like it wasn't so bad. Yeah, it's not so bad. That wasn't really hurt. All right, it hurt like heck, but you didn't want people to know that. But that pain is now proof that they're not doing something wrong, okay? It's proof that you were trying to stay safe in that moment. So that's why you did it. All right. Sometimes that pain in your body feels, you know, doesn't feel like telling the truth. Okay. A lot of people avoid boundaries because they do not want to feel discomfort. It comes from the boundary. The boundary sometimes feel discomfort. But remember, at the end of the day, the boundary is gonna be the best solution. But it's not an easy solution. And a lot of people don't tell you that. They tell you that it's gonna be great when you set boundaries. When you set boundaries, especially if you haven't been setting them with people, it gets really bad first. It doesn't get well. It goes worse actually. But ultimately, it's the solution. Ultimately, it's the solution. So that's the part you need to understand, okay? So boundaries do not always mean danger. Sometimes discomfort means you're doing something new. Sometimes if I've never done something and I have to do it, it's a little hard at the beginning, okay? So sometimes guilt means you're breaking an old pattern. Think about that. Sometimes you feel guilty. Think about it like this. I might be breaking a new pattern that I never broke before. All right. Sometimes anxiety means your body is learning that it can survive honesty because sometimes your body feels like, I can't survive being honest. Isn't that crazy? But sometimes your body feels like, if I'm honest, they'll kill me, and your body just starts getting anxious and panicky and all that. All right, so that's what it's about. Okay, that's why your nervous system safety. That's why you need nervous system safety when you do boundaries. Okay, so that's why we do self empathy, because we need to learn how to bring in the nervous system safety when we're doing the boundaries. Because when we do the boundaries, sometimes we're going to get triggered. Bottom line, you're going to get triggered. So sometimes, not all the time, depends if you've ever done it before. So it really just depends. This is a case by case scenario. I don't mean to make you think that this is a for everybody, but in a lot of cases, that's why you're not doing boundaries, because boundaries are triggering you. Okay. So you also need to help the body feel safe before, during, and after the boundary. So that's why we do deep inner soul healing. So signs you need a boundary. Here are some signs that boundaries may be needed. Before we get off of here, we got a couple of little more things. Keep feeling resentment. If you keep feeling resentment, you need a boundary. If you keep feeling resentment, you need a boundary. Okay, if you feel drained after being around certain people, you need a boundary. If you feel like you cannot be honest, you need a boundary. Okay? You need to be able to be honest with people. Okay? If you feel constantly like you explaining yourself, you need a boundary. If you're afraid of someone's reaction, that's a big one. If you're afraid of their action, oh, you definitely need a boundary. Okay? So you feel responsible for fixing everybody's mood. People are going to get mad and you're not going to be able to control that. You need a boundary. Okay? All right. If you keep hoping someone will magically notice your needs, no mas. You need a boundary. Okay? If you feel like you're betraying yourself to keep the peace, you need a boundary. Okay? If your body is tightening when certain people call or text you, you need a boundary. Okay? The last one is really, really important. The body often knows when your mind is already what your mind does not want to admit. Okay? Your body knows it. Tight chest, stomach drop, headache, exhaustion, okay? Shallow breathing, dread, urge to disappear. Those are the signs. Okay? I wanted to teach you today. Those are your signals. Not always final answers, but they're definitely signals. Okay? All right. So you can ask yourself, what is my body trying to tell me? That's how you know you need a boundary. Body's trying to tell you. Okay? What feels too much here? All right? What am I afraid will happen? All these are body signals, okay? All right, where am I abandoning myself? You stop and you say that to yourself. What's going on with me? Where am I abandoning myself? What do I need in order to feel safe and honest right now? Okay? All right. So, all right, let's close this out, you guys. All right. Let's name some different types of boundaries before we do, because boundaries are not only about cutting people off. Hmm? Because I know you know about those boundaries. Okay. There are time boundaries. For example, I'm not available after 8 p.m. Okay. All right. There are emotional boundaries. I care about myself, but I can not be the only support. Okay. I care about you, excuse me, but I cannot be your only support. Because sometimes people, are a bit much and it's hard. You know what I mean? We're trying to help them, but you need a break. Okay. I'm not always available for yelling. I'm not always available for yelling. There's some people who like to yell. You know what I mean? Not always available for that. Okay. All right. Another example. There are physical boundaries. Okay. I do not want to be touched right now. Okay. All right. There are conversation boundaries. I love this one. I'm willing to talk when we can both speak respectfully. Well, there's conversation boundaries. Okay. This is not the kind of conversation that I'm okay with. There are digital boundaries. I do not answer messages immediately. Sometimes you might need to think. Sometimes you might be doing something else. And the person wants you to immediately answer that doggone text message, and you can't do that because you have boundaries. Okay, I'm taking a break from the phone. Sometimes you take the break from the phone. Yeah, I know I need a break from the phone. Sometimes I don't take nearly as enough breaks as I need, but yes, you might need a break from the phone. Okay, sometimes you have financial boundaries. I'm not able to lend money. I'm not able to lend money. That does not work for my budget. Okay, all right, then there are spiritual and some people call it energetic boundaries. I need quiet time. All right. I need quiet time. I'm not available for gossip. Big one. Okay. I'm choosing peace over proving my point. Okay. I'm choosing peace over proving my point. So sometimes the boundaries is Sometimes the boundary is something you live. You stop over explaining. You stop chasing. You stop answering every call. You stop arguing with people committed to misunderstanding you. They're committed to it, so don't even try and stop them, okay? All right. You stop volunteering for things that leave you depleted. Those are for our people that are like, I'm always volunteering. Nada. You do not need to be volunteering for everything. You're burning yourself out over there. Okay, stop volunteering for everything. Okay, stop confusing access with love because sometimes people give you access, but there's no love. Okay, all right. So I hope this really, really helps you guys. All right. So let's close this, really, really close this out now. Okay. So I had so many things I wanted to cover with you in this one. Okay. So now I want you to give you a simple formula because I always like to give you an answer to this. Okay. When you need is to set a boundary, try this. Okay. Name what's happening. State what you need. You can write this down. State what you need or what you will do. Okay. And follow through calmly. Follow through. Remember that, you guys. Follow through. Don't play around. All right. That's it. Here's the formula. When this happened, I feel, notice, need, blank. Moving forward, I will blank. Okay. Or even simpler, I'm not available for blank. I'm available for blank. Write this stuff down, you guys. All right. And it's gonna be, you're gonna be able to listen to this again if you need to, rewind if you have to, and leave a comment and subscribe and do all of that. Okay. All right. So let me give you another example. You're always disrespectful to me. So try something. I want to continue this conversation, but I'm not available for yelling. I'll come back when you can speak calmly. That's a great way to set a boundary. All right. All right. So you're draining me. Instead, try something like, I care about you and I also need to rest tonight. I cannot talk about this right now. Polite. You're setting a boundary. Okay. So instead of you never respect my time, you can say it like this: I can wait 15 minutes. After that, I will need to reschedule. I can wait 15 minutes, but after that, I can need to respect. That's your time. You're going to set a boundary. Stop making me feel guilty. Do it like this: I understand you're disappointed. My answer still is no. I love that one. I understand that you are disappointed. All right. But my answer is still no. Okay. This one is really powerful. Okay. Let me try. Let me say it again. I understand you are disappointed, but my answer is still no. I love that one. Okay. Do not have to convince someone to approve of your boundary. They don't have to approve of it. Some people will approve of it. But if you know those people don't approve of it, watch out. You might be a toxic person if they really can't handle your boundary. And the boundaries are there to protect you from toxic people. If you're trying to set a boundary and the people are really, really giving you a hard time, well, think about that for a minute because you might be with a toxic person. Okay. All right. So, boundary scripts for real life. Let's go through some practical scripts you can use. When someone wants more than you can give, I care about you, but I do not have the capacity for this right now. Okay. When someone keeps pushing after you said no, I have already answered. I am not going to keep discussing it. When someone guilt trips you, I hear that you are upset. My decision is still the same. When someone raises their voice, I am willing to talk, but not while while I'm being yelled at. Okay. I'm going to pause this conversation. It's okay. When you need space, I need time to process before I respond. That's a really good one. Because sometimes you need time to think. People are like, give me the answer, give me the answer. Mm-mm. Thank you for inviting me. I'm not able to make it. It's okay. No long explanation needed. When someone asks something personal, I'm not ready to talk about that. When family crosses a line, I love you and I'm not discussing that topic. Okay. When someone keeps criticizing your choices, I understand you may see it differently. This is what I have chosen. Okay. When you need to protect your healing, I'm in a season where I'm choosing peace. consistency, and emotional safety. Okay, all right, I got these all down for you guys. Okay, now I want you to notice something about these scripts. Okay, they're all cruel. They are not cruel. So I'm going to say they're all cruel. They're not cruel. They're not cruel. All right, they're not dramatic. They're not disrespectful. Because you can't cross another person's boundaries while you protect your own. So if you notice, you got to learn how to protect your boundaries, but also, be responsive to other people's boundaries as well. Okay, but they're very clear boundaries, and the clarity is very kind. Okay, confusion often keeps unhealthy cycles alive. Clarity gives someone information. Okay, so drop it in this chat, you guys. Clarity is kind because some of us were taught that being clear is mean, and being clear is not mean. Okay, clarity is not mean. Clarity is mature. Clarity is safe. Clarity is honest, and clarity keeps your nervous system, uh, you know, stop living in chaos and mixed signals. All right, so we're finalizing this, you guys. We are finalizing this. Okay, we will do the remaining part next week. But I just want you guys to know. All right, I really, really appreciate you guys joining me on this live. And yes, I hope that helped. I hope those boundaries help. And we'll pick up to next week and we'll continue learning about boundaries. Okay. All right. So, you guys, remember, it's not what happened to you. It's who you decided to become. Okay. Remember that. That's what I always tell you guys. It's not what happens to you, but it's who you decide to become. My name is Krystal Boothe. All right. And I will see you in the next live. Okay. All right. Go ahead and like, share, and subscribe. And I'll see you next time. Okay. Bye bye.